Hello and welcome to 18 WJTS-Inform. Once again, we're honored this year as the legislation gets underway to have State Senator Mark Messmer joining us in the studio, as he will most Fridays through the session all the way up until the end of April. Senator, welcome to the show.
Great to be here again. Another legislative session is underway.
It's off and running. Well, let's talk about what has happened. Actually, you've been in session now for 2 weeks. What's really been going on?
Well, the first week we met was, we just met 2 days, the first week of January, to get bills that had been filed to that point assigned to committees.
Okay.
I mean, you've got to read them on the floor for their first reading, get their committee assignments approved, and that has to happen the first couple days so you have things to work on this week. So then Monday of this week, we had the inauguration of the new governor, Governor Holcomb, Lieutenant Governor Crouch, Superintendent of Public Instruction, Jennifer McCormick, and the Attorney General, Curtis Hill. They were inaugurated on Monday. So Monday was pretty much, we did meet early in the morning to get some more bills, bill lists approved and bills assigned to committee. And then the rest of the day was pretty much ceremony, inauguration, celebrations. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, committees were up and running and starting to get committee reports, to the floor. So then next week we'll start to actually deal with a few things on the floor. Then next week we also have State of the State and State of the Judiciary and a few more ceremonial things to kind of get us through those first 2 weeks, and then things will hit a pretty good pace.
Now, this is the long session. So every other year is a budget session.
Correct.
Okay. So last year it ended...
last year it was scheduled to be done March 15th, and we got done like March 9th. We got done about a week early. And the non-budget years, the last 3 non-budget years, we've gotten done early.
Okay.
They pretty much tell you about the midpoint. We're gonna squeeze things. Knock a week of committee hearing time down, shorten up conference committee time, and get done a few days early. Budget session, we'll be there till 11:55 on April 28th.
Okay.
Because the budget, there's so many moving parts and so many things that you really can't finalize until just right at the last minute. We'll get our last budget or income projections about the middle of April, and there's just a lot of things that have to jockey around and fall into place. So it's usually right up to the wire, that we get done. And if we get done early, it'll be 30 minutes early.
Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the big picture things that are going to be happening in legislation this year.
Sure. Yeah, being a budget year, and we do 2-year budgets, so this year will be the budget year session. And the biggest item on our budget, 52% of our budget is K through 12 public education spending, and that'll again be the dominant piece that we'll want to get the funding formula. And there's projected to be, I think, about 2.5% more money allocated to the budget again this year from the December forecast. So we'll make sure that they get their budget items taken care of first. Then the next biggest chunk that we deal with, we usually have to spend general budget revenue to fund some of the road work. That's about, and overall it's about 10% of the budget. College education spending is another 7 to 8% of the budget. So education makes up about 60% of the budget. Roads about the next biggest chunk, and then everything else the other 30% is split among 50 other government agencies. So DNR, BMV, state police, all of the other functions kind of fall out of the rest of what's there. So, but school funding will be first choice, road funding, and then doing some long-term road funding corrections this session will be our next. Other than the budget as a whole, the next biggest piece we're going to work on is what to do to get long-term road funding issues addressed. We've taken about, I would say roughly, this past 2016 we took $800 million out of the general fund to fund roads, and we've taken probably $300 to $500 million per year out of general revenue to allocate to roads, because our fuel taxes, our gasoline tax was last adjusted 14 years ago. The diesel tax was last adjusted 26 years ago. And obviously, whether it's a diesel rig or a family car, mileage standards have gone up, fuel consumption has gone down. And so, over the last couple of decades, the revenues have continued to decline, and we've allocated more and more from the general budget, to cover those expenses. We need to come up with a sustainable plan, that can, we want to put a 10-year plan together that we think, adequately covers road funding, for the next 10 years. So it'll be a combination of a lot of different things. We'll make an adjustment to the fuel tax rate. The House made their announcement last week that they're looking at, approximately 10 cent per gallon increase. And within that, there'll also be alternative fuel vehicles, electric cars, currently, pay nothing.
Mm-hmm. And in 10 years, that's going to change.
And that mix of hybrids and electric cars is only going to, right now it's a small percentage of the fleet statewide, but the larger that piece becomes, with nothing built in to pull them into the mix. So their proposal had the normal passenger car excise tax is $15 per vehicle. For electric cars, it'll be their proposal is for $150. The average consumer on gasoline, fuel tax in a year pays about $19 a month is the average. So that's about a couple $100 a year, or $250 a year roughly, that the normal consumer pays in their fuel tax consumption. And so we need to try to get them into the mix, and then we'll look at it and adjust it as need be down the road. And then there's a tire disposal fee of 25 cents a tire that's currently in when you buy a new set of tires for your vehicle. If adjusting that would impact the hybrid car, the electric car, because they use tires the same as anything else. Mm-hmm. So, and then on some of the interstates, on any new interstate construction, tolling will be part of anything. New bridges, like the one between Indiana and Louisville that they brought online at the end of the year. Automatic tolling where you don't have to stop at a toll booth. But new interstate roads will inevitably have to be tolled to help fund them. So tolling, tire fees, plate fees on alternative fuel vehicles, and fuel tax rate adjustments. Some of all of that will end up in the final mix. We may not know that till the end of April exactly where all that falls out, but that process needs to be addressed. Like I said, a half a billion a year coming out of the general fund, you're paying for it out of your income taxes. Mm-hmm. So it's just we need to try to decrease the pressure on the general fund, because with the general fund revenues not growing very quickly, Indiana's done well. We've got a good economic growth compared to our neighboring states, compared to the Midwest. But when the whole country, the last 5 to 7 years has grown at about 1.5%, us having 2.5% growth in our budget's pretty good. Mm-hmm. But we're not immune from the country as a whole. So hopefully, going forward, the economic growth will get back to the 3 to 4% ranges that we saw for decades in this country, and then our budgets will see some healing. But those will be the big picture items that we'll try to tackle this year. Okay. So, and then there's a few other issues that we've worked on in the past. Drug addiction issues, opioid abuse, and meth abuse, and we've looked at ways. The federal government's passed some legislation that we have the past few years to try to deal with treatment programs and addiction programs. That's just that's a kind of the under the radar issue that everybody probably knows somebody who has addiction problems, but trying to find ways to help get people off their addictions and treatment programs, and how do you fund it and deal with that. And then an item that's I was hoping to get a little bit more feedback from the interim study committee, but what are we going to replace ISTEP with? Mm-hmm. They came back with a recommendation that kind of confirmed where we all knew we needed to be last year coming out of session. It needs to be shorter, it needs to be off the shelf, it needs to be, you know, I mean, all of the things that we kind of expected, that they basically didn't give us a lot of guidance. So, but we will, through this coming session, come up with, you know, what's going to be the replacement mechanism with the limited amount of detail decisions the study committee came out with, whether we get it done in time to have, you know, whether this is the last year for I-STEP or whether we've got to, you know, spend, you know, more this year planning for what that long-term replacement is going to be. So, you know, I was really hoping this would be the last round of I-STEP. You know, it may be
this
one
coming
more.
spring,
yeah,
you mean?
Yeah, this spring should have been it. But study committee spent half their time just deciding what they were meeting for, and then when they finally did kind of get down to the nitty-gritty, they ran out of December, just came and went. So, but they did suggest or recommend, you know, getting rid of it, replacing it with some, you know, standardized programs that are out there in the test market that are a lot quicker, simpler, and cheaper. So those will be the big items. And then next week when we meet, I'll talk about the bills I've got filed, and then some of the, you know, other interesting issues that got filed this session.
And obviously people can contact you if they've got some opinion on different bills or things that they think should happen.
Sure.
They should give you a call.
My legislative surveys should have gone out right at the end of December. They should be arriving in folks' mailbox as we speak. And on there you can go to my legislative website if you don't want to pay the postage to mail the card back in. You can go online and fill it out, or you can fill the survey out. You can email me at mark.messmer@iga.in.gov, or S48 for the Senate district, you know, at in.gov. Get you. I mean, they all go to the same inbox. So call me at home if you need to. Call me at the State House if we're in session. Email me. Go on the, you know, the lot of ways to track me down in the electronic media world.
All right, Mark, thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome. Great to be here.
And we're looking forward to seeing you every Friday from here on out, for the most part. There may be some Fridays here and there that don't work into your schedule. Our guest has been State Senator Mark Messmer, and we appreciate you coming in, Senator, and spending time with us. And we thank you for watching WJTS Inform. We are local people watching local people.